I remember being part of the celebrations of this country for its 200th anniversary in 1976. I was very small. And my small town in the middle of Massachusetts had that typical local commemoration. I mean, it was on the green town common, had the white steeple of the great Congregational Church rising at one end, kind of anchoring the universe. And the parade, of course it was a parade, had red, white, and blue streamers, and the one fire truck with the station staffed by volunteers. The parade also included veterans, men, and maybe one or two women decorated, wearing their insignia, wearing themselves with pride, and so much, certainly deservedly so for their service, but also they were there in memory of fallen friends. This was the town gathering, so there were families and children dashing in and out the festivities. I'm sure I was among them. And it was in that lovely 1976 summer day. It was a taste of liberty and peace and joy and a hope that not only were we celebrating what had been, but that everybody should also have such a life. I catch a bit of that feeling now when we visit family near Concord in Massachusetts and pass the Minuteman National Park and see the Minuteman statue that's there and the historic lands where they fought those first battles in the Revolutionary War. We saw those first battles for independence, the first casualties, and the early fallen soldiers that we remember on Memorial Day. That loss, knowing that loss is still living in that ground, mingles with the fighting spirit and strengthens the gravitas of the larger purpose of liberty. On this weekend, our task is to take seriously this history, this legacy, this aspiration. It asks so much of those who have died in service and have died for the sake of its preservation and its fulfillment. It is our task to take this to heart and to tell a story that is, of course, far, far more complicated than fireworks and star-spangled banners. And I take a cue from Unitarian Universalism in the moment too, because at that founding of this country was also the growing spirit of a more liberal approach to religion. I wouldn't say liberal in that time, but a little more liberal approach to religion, or more liberal approach to humanity, because this was the age of the Enlightenment. Right? This was coming forth from the understanding of science and reason and saying, yes, people have rights. People should be free from being controlled about their religion. They should be able to pursue life and liberty and, yes, happiness. All of these were an intrinsic part of the founding of the Bill of Rights, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of speech, due process. Ever know about due process? Right, we like that, right? Remember that. Freedom from state-sponsored religion, freedom from imprisonment by the government. And to put this together in a system of government that was flexible enough to shift and grow. The founding fathers may have been ignorant of many things, but they knew enough to know they didn't know. And that's important too. It was a world of no kings. Let me say that again. No kings. Amen. And this was all in the religious conversation in the emerging Unitarians and Universalists of the time as well. This was some of the people who signed the Declaration of Independence were in that Unitarian and Universalist spirit. That willingness to examine and reflect and not just go with what had been told time after time. Now, I'm not going to say the system is perfect. It is deeply, deeply flawed, even at its inception. We know this. It is a system that excludes so many people from the ability to vote because of gender or lack of property. It is, in fact, oppressive. It declared certain persons not even whole persons with that 3/5 rule. And so the great experiment of this country has been working through what was excellent and what was awful in this system the entirety of the time. And these last nearly 250 years, woof, did I give my age away? 250 years. We are just about to celebrate. We have been working through this structure and the suffering thereof all along, as well as along with the human range that we simply are, the fabulous and the flawed and the powerful and the selfish and the generous. Our entire humanity has been revealed in these last 250 years and more. But we've made some progress. We made some progress. We did, in fact, have this New Deal that lifted up and provided structures for those who could not take care of themselves because of health, because of age, because of simply human reasons. We recognize that our society must take care of the least of us, that is a sign of civilization. And then post-World War II, we had additional social structures in place. The GI Bill that helped so many people get into education and good homes and good jobs. We followed that with the civil rights. We were on a roll, us humanity over here in this continent. We're on this roll of civil rights coming into being, of voting for actually everybody to bring us closer to the aspirational democracy that we had started out with than at any other point. And here we are in this moment today. Here we get to learn our civics lessons all over again, and in ways we never expected, and in ways that are about life and death, that are deeply profound, personally wounding, and morally harming. As Heather Cox Richardson points out, the Boston University history professor who has been aggregating the news in its context for some years now, democracy is fragile. Its existence requires work from all of us. And it requires work from those of us who have the most privilege on behalf of those in the margins. It requires us that we see each other as fully human and fully equal and fully having the right to exist, even when we deeply disagree, when we truly don't understand each other, and especially when we don't like each other. This is the great American experiment. And when the will fails to keep it going in that system of checks and balances, the whole construct is at risk. And this is what we are seeing. That enough people have gotten into enough power to want to destroy the whole system. As imperfect and as awful and as oppressive as it is it also had been keeping many of us safe and alive. Part of my job is to look at the terrible of the world and help people make it make sense. I don't like writing these. I don't want to. I don't want to. And it breaks my heart just to have this conversation. But I want to recognize this as a moment of mourning. I think that's one of the things we can actually offer to each other in this moment. This is not a rally. We're now not out putting out our signs and cheering each other on the pavement. This can be a moment of mourning. And how much this hurts. How much has been lost. How much people have already been impacted by radical eliminations of jobs, of whole departments, of funding. How much food has already been taken from the most vulnerable of children. That brings up in me a level of disgust I can't even quite articulate. And then in much larger moments, refusing such things as not assisting in the recovery after deadly tornadoes and literally leaving people in the wind. And now in this, I can't even say the title of it, this bill that's in our governance right now, that is on the brink of taking Medicaid, dismantling rights, dismantling judicial powers, and much more. This is not the country I recognize. And we have global relationships also impacted, the loss of US aid, of medicine. What is rebounding upon us is the US's role in supporting Israel and their ability to attack Gaza and destroy lives every day. And it feeds into the ability of some bad actors to weaponize anti-Semitism against our own ability to have free speech. All of this and more. What it does do, amidst the grief, amidst the heartbreak, amidst the moral injury, it tells us what matters most. One of the most powerful things we can do is to retain and deepen our sense of what is truth, what is real, when there's a whole section of the country who seems to be willing to go with an entirely different reality that is not based in fact and is not open to information or revelation or compassion. This is an opportunity to discover and rediscover what is of worth and why certain systems are needed and need to work well. Those of us who've been working against the brutality of our incarceration system, and keep in mind the US has 20% of the world's prisoners incarcerated in this country. People have been working towards dismantling the systems that get people into incarceration, the law enforcement that is biased and harmful, and will very much tell us that all of this that's going on is actually nothing new. That our Black, Indigenous, people of color, allies in the work of dismantling oppression will also tell us that this is nothing new. That perhaps we encounter the world as it really is for so many of us in this country, and many of us who are privileged just didn't know it. There's something to be said for breaking up systems, but to do it in a way that doesn't harm. To Do it in a way that doesn't break the people in the process. Because this form of breaking, this form of cruelty, we get to see the worst of our human imagination. The month's theme is imagination, and we've extolled it. We had Star Wars. We had all kinds of good things this month. We had the coming of age class share what's important to them. But there's also the worst of human imagination, and that's being inflicted upon us now. We're getting in that conflict a deep lesson about power and who wields it, about the nature of power and how to claim it. We aspire to freedom. We aspire to freedom in the founding of this country, in so much of what we talk about in Unitarian Universalism. But there is a companion to freedom, and that is responsibility. That is relationship. We are not free in a vacuum. We are free amidst the world. And if we want a world that is equally liberated, as we aspire ourselves to be individually, then we must go forth and take care of that for everybody. Liberation is universal. And we are obligated to ensure that to the best of our ability. I so appreciate my colleague, the Reverend Leslie Takahashi. How do we curate freedom? How we curate and protect our ability to move about in the world? That we pay attention. And Reverend Leslie is taking from the author Timothy Snyder and his piece on tyranny when she created that commitment to what we will pay attention. And I also appreciate her as a source and reflection on this because her own father's family was in the internment camps during World War II, the Japanese internment camps here in this country, removed and displaced as if they were worth nothing, simply because they looked different and were treated with suspicion and were not counted as human. We have a long history of not paying attention, of not understanding that relationship between freedom and responsibility. And we will mess it up again, but we can commit to doing our best now, to paying attention. And we can do that with remembering on this anniversary of this 200th anniversary of the American Unitarian Association, our UUA president, Reverend Dr. Sophia Bettencourt, who herself would not have been at all holding any position of power in society at the founding of this country. She is Black, she is Indigenous, she's from Louisiana, and she is now our president of our denomination. This is a good sign. And she has graced us with her generous spirit to be serving in this moment, knowing that so many of us are so white and have so much to learn. As we say in Massachusetts, we're wicked white. Way white. So many of us. We have so much to learn. Even we have to learn how to even pay attention. That's a learning, right? But she reminds us of our place as a part of a larger faith here. She says, today we celebrate 200 years of the American Unitarian Association at a time when Unitarian Universalism is badly needed in our nation and in the world. We should be proud of the accomplishments and the impact of liberal thought and the theology that grows from that thought. And yet, too, there is trouble born of comfort and thinking we know best. There we go. Let us not fall into arrogance more, shall we? Born into the comfort of thinking we know best when it comes to restoring justice and building a world and an earth community that allows all to fully thrive. This is our work, both to get in the way and get out of our way. She says, how do we proceed as authoritarianism is on the rise both domestically and around the world? We must remember, she says, that we are sanctuary people, not only in collaborating around the work of justice, but also in providing nourishment and shelter for our own spirits so that we do not give up in the face of all that is overwhelming. May this milestone, she sends us out with, be one that galvanizes us in all the ways we are called to live into this moment and organize around our shared values. We have an opportunity to respect that relationship between great freedom, great responsibility, in great attentiveness. Because as Heather Cox Richardson tells us, authoritarians cannot rise if there are strong enough communities and people acting with joy. We get to claim joy in this work, even as our hearts are broken open again and again. She says, you need despair and anger in order for authoritarians to rise. And whatever those things you bring to the community, do them, and do them with joy, like a bake sale for intellectual freedom. Don't stop doing the things you love because you are scared, because that actually is a form of resistance. Showing up and doing things you love says to an authoritarian, you have no place to root here. Yes. So let us take this wonderful alchemy of freedom and service and heartbreak in living into the legacy of those who died so that we could be in this moment. Let us take that alchemy and into determination and resistance and continue down the line. Hopefully for us, not always for us, but certainly for those that follow in the next 200 years of this great experiment. May we go forth with open hearts, with a sense of compassion and a determination to say, you shall not pass. You authoritarians, you. No. We are here and we are not going anywhere. Amen.